Hello, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, a drought-stricken area of Kenya miraculously discovers decades worth of water reserves. What could possibly go wrong? Our digital producer Malika Bilal is here looking out for your live feedback. When I first saw this story, I love this story.
Me too.
First thought, good news story from Africa. Fantastic.
It is, and we love covering good news here at the stream.
We do.
So our community likes it too, because we covered this in our lead segment last week, and we've gotten really positive tweets ever since, but they're tinged with a little bit of skepticism.
Always a but.
Always. Soraya tweets in, if it's used wisely for the benefit of the people in that community, the county of Turkana will thrive. I wish that becomes the case. She sounds a little bit skeptical. We want to know what you think. So for those of you at home, tweet us your questions and your comments with hashtag AJStream.
And joining us in our studio conversation, we have Casey Water. Casey is a water exploration specialist who managed the UNESCO mission that discovered massive water reserves in Turkana. No wonder he's smiling. Casey, welcome to the show. Can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you.
All right, you'll hear more from him in just a moment. Now, did you know that many of our shows were pitched by our online community? You can like us on Facebook by going to facebook.com/AJStream and tell us what you would like to see next, and we might just do it.
I'm Everton Fox, I'm a meteorologist at Al Jazeera, and I'm in the jet stream.
In a country where 17 million people lack access to safe drinking water, years of severe drought have made matters worse for Kenya's poorest region, Turkana. But last week, the government and UNESCO announced the discovery of around about 250 billion cubic meters of fresh water found beneath the sun-scorched ground in Turkana. That's enough to supply the entire country for 70 years. But it's not quite time for celebration yet. Turkana is a remote and undeveloped region, and so the water is not going to be easy to get to, and some experts doubt whether the government has the capacity to get to the water quickly or the expertise to use it sustainably. Others in the Turkana region are skeptical about what and who the water will go to and who it will go to. The discovery may also increase border tensions with some neighbouring countries. So, how will Kenya deal with all of these challenges? To help us discuss this on Skype, we're joined by John Nyaro. He is Kenya's Director of Water Resources at the Ministry of Environment, Water and Natural Resources. In our Google Plus Hangout, we're joined by Ika Anjali. She's the founder of Friends of Lake Turkana. That's a grassroots social and environmental justice organisation. And Ruth Nyambura is a social ecologist who works with the African Biodiversity Network. It's great to have you all in the stream. We're keeping the water theme going all the way through the show. Let me start first of all with Ika. You are from the Turkana region. It's a very specific kind of area where you kind of have to go there to understand what it's like. Can you give us a very vivid description?
Turkana is a dry area where the communities struggle to survive. It's a constant struggle for survival in search of pasture and water, government marginalization for years. And now we are now celebrating the discovery of oil and water. And despite the harshness of the region, we are a community who celebrate culture and do dance a lot in celebrations of whether it's the wet seasons, whether it's marriage. We are a community who embrace culture, but at the same time have been working very hard for years just to survive.
Ikao, does it rain at all in Turkana?
We have very little rains, though this year, for some reason, we've gotten some really good rains, and almost every month we've had some rain. So for the last number of years, we've barely had any rains, but this year has been a good year, I can say.
What about, we can see how dry it is from the pictures that we've been showing our audience, but what about lifestyle, the people who live there? What do they do in an area that's that dry?
We're predominantly pastoralists, most of the time moving in search of pasture and water, and have moved into fishing to substitute and support the pastoralism that we have been doing for years.
Your first reaction when you heard that there was water underneath this really dry part of the world, this dry part of northwestern Kenya, can you recreate that first reaction for us?
It was total excitement having heard it. I had it way before government announced it, and have been following a couple of studies on underground water because I have a focus on water rights for communities.
Okay, Malika.
Well, Cal mentioned some of the conditions that are currently in the Turkana region, and our community also weighed in with a few on Twitter. Famine, drought, insecurity are all trends in the region. And we also got a Facebook comment from Joey who says, this will mean a lot to the Turkana indigenous people. This will lead to proper growth of crops and prevention of dehydration of animals. So Casey, you were part of the team that was there and that made this awesome, for lack of a better word, discovery. Is this going to help with some of the things that our community mentioned, dehydration, the drought?
Absolutely. These people need water. They've been living without good access to water and sanitation. So the resources that we found, I believe that this is going to help immensely. Yeah.
We have a picture from a UNESCO video where you're just standing there and there's cracks in the ground. It almost looks unbelievable. So when you went into the region, what were the clues that you had that there was water anywhere near it?
Well, when you look from the satellite, we work from the satellite, and we also look from on a much bigger area and a perspective. You actually start to see clues.
All right, we're going to put the satellite up now because
Okay.
I want you to talk us through the satellite, and
Sure.
then you can help us see the clues as well. So we've got a satellite picture, and there's various colors on that satellite picture.
Sure.
So you see it there, we can see it right now. Talk
Okay.
us through it. What are we looking at?
Okay, so what we're looking at, this is the new groundwater map of Turkana, let's say the central and northern part of Turkana.
Right.
What we see here is two types of groundwater. So we've got shallow groundwater, which is easy to reach.
What color is that?
And those colors are the bright colors that you see on the map. So yellow, light blue, red, and green.
Okay.
And the dark colors are basically anything that's dry.
So
And
all that black, dark blue, that's all basically dry, no water there.
Right, and that's the easy to reach. And then the
Right.
second type of groundwater is deep reserves, and that's something that most people have been focusing on. But there are two types of groundwater in this map, and that's also important.
So you could see that from a satellite picture from space. You can see the water.
Well,
looking
not
that way?
exactly.
All right. Tell us.
We use the WATEX technology to process all of the different types of satellite imagery, but we also look at other, let's say, oil exploration technologies and data, as well as conventional data. We mix that all up and we come out with a map that shows us where the water is and how much there is and how deep it is.
This is great. This is a great story. Ruth, how excited are you?
I've learned to be cautious when it comes to resources in Kenya and Africa. You learn very soon that the resources don't go to the people; they go to the status quo. Just to say, two issues I'm very concerned about, and I hope that maybe Carl and John can answer. Is one, oil was discovered in Turkana last year. And from those of us who work in the environmental fields in Africa, and especially on extractives, in places like the Niger Delta, underground water sources have been contaminated by oil. And
Okay.
also the issue of privatization of water. Yes.
All right, so let's deal with one of
So
them.
this is-
Let's deal with the first one first. So oil's been discovered. I'm going to go back to that map because Casey, you showed me where the oil is.
Right.
So if we go back to that satellite map and then we go south on that map, how far south do we have to go on that map to actually see where the oil is?
Well, just south of the map that was just shown.
All right, so you go off the map and just
you
the
go
bottom
off
of the map,
on the
off
south.
the bottom of your screen.
That's right.
That's where oil is.
About 80 kilometers south of there. Yeah.
So is that a real issue then that Ruth is concerned about, that the oil could actually leak into the water reserves there?
I don't think there's a direct threat to the resources on the map, because at the moment there are no, let's say, resources that are or oil resources that are being exploited in the area.
Actually, Casey,
Yeah.
Lotikipi Basin is also being exploited for petroleum
I know it's
by the Adamante.
right. I know that there's a company looking for oil. I don't think they've found it yet.
No, they're still exploring for it, and as we know, the environmental regulations in Kenya do not require the companies to have a hydrogeological survey. So that really is a threat.
Malika.
Well, I want to pick up on something that Ruth said. John, and I'm going to come to you with this, but picking up on something that Ruth
Yes.
said, she says she's learned to be skeptical when it comes to the government. I want you to listen to a video comment from someone who shares her views.
It's great news about the water discovery for the people of Turkana, and definitely the whole country celebrates it. But over the years, Kenya has registered different discoveries, which you never get to hear of their progress. So will this project be transparent? Unless the civil society plays a big role in this discovery, I'm ready to be surprised by the Kenyan government if they are ready to reserve this water for 70 years. Time will tell.
So, John, she says she's ready to be surprised. Will this project be transparent?
Well, I think actually I'm just today this evening from Turkana, and Angela, my friend, was missing in action in Turkana in our home area, and I want to inform her it rained today in Turkana this morning, and I was woken up from my tent by the rain. Coming to the actual issue whether the government will be able to make the discovery of water reality, yes, it is going to be a reality. Actually, the first aquifer we discovered only 4 to 16 kilometers from the capital of Turkana, which is Lodwar. We have already tasked ourselves that we want to equip that borehole in the next 2 months maximum, so that the people of Turkana start enjoying that water. By the time they're enjoying that water, we are going to continue doing the monitoring, the behavior of that aquifer. We want to look at the drawdowns versus the recharge. How long does it take to recover when we draw a particular amount of water, so that we can continue drawing the water, the people of Turkana are enjoying it, and at the same time we are testing the safety yield. How much more can we be able to get out for other purposes?
Casey, does that sound like
I want to promise anybody who is a doubting Thomas, anybody who's got a doubting Thomas, that in 2 months the people of Turkana are going to start drinking the water from the first aquifer 12 kilometers from Lodwar town.
Casey,
so that is the undertaking the government has put in place.
Okay, thanks, John. Casey, does that sound like a workable plan?
Absolutely. The borehole, the one test borehole that we did to confirm that Lodwar aquifer is in place, and it just needs to be developed and so that the water can flow to the people.
So, Ikao, here we're getting assurances from a minister who works in the water department. Why would you not feel comfortable with that? Is there anything else that you're concerned about with Kenya's ability to manage the water?
I think for me it's going to be really interesting to see if the country is going to monitor. We have we have great policies on paper, but as of now, we don't even manage the surface water very well. So when you have water that's running that is not managed very well, it really makes me wonder how we're going to do it with the groundwater. I mean, it's a great idea to do the monitoring. We just haven't monitored anything before that. So this is going to be a first time that the government is going to be monitoring something. I mean, 2 years ago, Mr. Nyaoro was looking at groundwater in Nairobi, where we were trying to find out where the groundwater areas in Nairobi. Yet we should have had a monitoring system way before that. So for us, it's going to be great.
Yes, I think just to interject a little bit. Today, I want to think through in all Africa, the water in Nairobi, groundwater in Nairobi is the best monitored. We got about 3,002 boreholes in Nairobi, and all of them has got an airline. We can tell you the drawdown. We can even tell you how much we can get from the aquifer, even by counting by liters. And I want to assure you, what we are starting today, it is good to have good policy, and I believe if you have a good book that gives you a very good information and knowledge, that is the starting point. Our good policy is actually what has made us to discover the water in Turkana. If at all we did not have any policy at all, we would have not discovered it. And today we have also, actually at the time, we are also completing the National Water Master Plan for the entire country, including Turkana. And if you look at the Vision 2030, the Vision 2030, the flagship project, stated very clear to them that we must be able to map the groundwater for Turkana and Marsabit, and we want to make our Vision 2030 a reality.
What is Vision 2030? What is the Vision 2030? Because obviously we're going out to the whole world, so very quickly.
Yes, the Vision 2030 is the blueprint for the government that by 2030, Kenya would be a middle-class economy.
Okay.
People enjoying 100% water coverage.
Okay.
We would have reduced the poverty. We would have been enjoying the good environment and the good health. And all this has been confirmed in our Constitution 2010. So we are going to make our Vision 2030 a reality.
Okay.
I just want to just join in just 1 second. Right now, if you look at it, the northern part of northern Kenya actually has boreholes being drilled by the NGOs and every charity organization, including government, but there is actually no map that indicates where which borehole is as of now. So I hope this monitoring is really going to show that, because with that already existing in Lodwar itself, for example, I'll give you an example. Lodwar and Mandera do not have a map showing where the boreholes are. I can assure you of that.
So Ruth, I want to get your opinion on that, because you heard John say that it's being monitored. But then we got this excellent question on Twitter. Andy says, "Can someone answer on the show who owns the water under Kenyan law? I think this is key in how it will be distributed." On the back of that, we got a Facebook comment from DJ who says, "I live here in Nairobi, Kenya. The government's not going to do anything to help the poor. In short, the Turkana people won't benefit because it will be cut into two parts, one being consumed by the government and the other by foreign companies." So there's a sense of distrust, Ruth.
I don't think that is true. The
Okay, John, just give us a moment and allow Ruth to answer that, and we'll come back to you, because you really have set out your position very clearly. Ruth, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm absolutely in love with what Ikal is saying. We need to be very realistic. This is not a takedown of the government of Kenya. We're being very realistic. As Ikal has mentioned, when we talk about Nairobi, a lot of us get big month, but we get no water in our taps. It's also not just about having water, the quality of water, and that's the reason why I keep going back to the issue of oil. As Ikal has said, the places that still could be mined, and these are issues that the context, emerging issues that are not being dealt with. With regards to helping with regards to water helping the people, we do realize that we're in the neoliberal, seeing the commodification of water in the whole country. The government of Kenya has basically let private companies run water in this country, and cartels, private companies and cartels.
I don't think that is true. All the water service providers in Kenya, what we call the water company, are run by the state corporations. There is no private sector running water in Kenya.
Well,
that is a mistake.
I would.
You have stated very clearly that the water coverage in Kenya.
Ruth, just hold tight for a moment. John, quickly finish.
Okay.
Yes, what I'm saying is that we totally accept from the government side that the water coverage in Kenya is not 100%. We are at 60%. We totally agree. That means there is another 40% of Kenya that do not have access to safe water. What is our Vision 2030? We want to ensure by 2030...
Okay, John, we're going back over something that you already made very clear for us. Just we're running out of time here, so I don't want you to repeat yourself. Casey, you're hearing this back and forth. You discovered the water. There's this big thing in Africa about the curses of natural resources. How can water be a problem in a dry area?
Well, fortunately in this case, I think there's enough water that was found that can provide the solutions that we're all looking for. But I have to echo and applaud some of the discussion here that the principles need to be laid down that will guide the development of that resource before any decisions about how the water can be developed is done.
There's a tweet that you sent out. I was looking through all of your tweets recently, and there's a tweet that came from Alex Owiti, and he's a Kenyan ecologist, and he tweets you, "Sustainable water supply is key to urban growth and development," and your reply, I love it. "Call me. I've got a related story that will hit the airwaves in a week that will change the face of Kenya." Whoa, did you overpromise or what?
No, I think I sent that about a week ago. So yeah,
it was at the end of June.
End of June. Yeah. Well, we were anticipating.
Do you feel that it's this huge? I mean, it really is that big.
It really is. When you look at the massive amount of water that we discovered, it's quite phenomenal. Now we just there are steps that need to be taken to really understand the resource. Scientifically, we're not finished.
Can this get messed up? Is it possible to get messed up?
Yes, you can't decide what you're going to do with it before you know how much you can take out of the ground and what can be done with it. I think those are the first steps that need to be taken before trying to really rush to decisions.
All right, Malika.
I'm talking about if it can get messed up. I mean, maybe you
think I
shouldn't
want
have
to
asked that, because there's a couple people online that say, of course it can. On Facebook, I still can't believe it. This might just be the birth of unceasing tensions. And following on that tensions tip, Ikao, we got a Facebook comment from Joey who says there's going to be tensions towards the borders of Kenya and neighboring countries. It's going to be really tough for security at the borders. Can you give us just kind of a wrap up of what some of those tensions might look like?
I think one of the key issues is we at the border, this water is at the border of Uganda, South Sudan, in areas where our government has been unable to protect the local community. So it's, as we move in search of pasture and water, it's going to be we'll have to see how our government protects the community. So that, are we going to share the resources with the neighboring communities? Is that going to be a framework? Are we going to keep it to ourselves? And is the government going to protect the local community as they develop? Because there's no way you can develop without security. So that's key. And then the catchment area, if I'm right, part of the catchment area supporting this is in Uganda. If Uganda decides, well, we can destroy this catchment area the way Kenya has done with the Mau, it's going to be very critical to see if that 70 years is going to be 70 years. So what is the government, are they working together to protect this?
Okay, John, I'm going to ask you that just, Ikao posts a lot of questions. Those are questions that are a perfect place to answer in the post show, because we're hitting the end of this main show. So I want you to hold your thought, John, and Ruth, and Ikao, and Casey as well. We've still got a lot to talk about, and we'll be doing that at stream.aljazeera.com. But right now, here's Malika with some other stories that we're following.
We start in Jerusalem, where tensions over holy sites have once again boiled over. Israeli security forces stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque compound Wednesday, barring anyone from entering or exiting. They reportedly used pepper spray, and people inside the mosque threw stones. Take a look at this. The stone throwing reportedly started when Israeli forces allowed Jewish worshippers to enter the area. The incident prompted conflict online as well. Sol tweets, Israel shouldn't control everything, but I also think that Jews have every right to access the holiest site in Judaism. But Zalama tweets, these policies are geared towards changing forever the status of Aqsa. You don't need to be religious to understand that. We head next to Greece, where the killing of a rapper has struck the country's biggest political fault line. Anti-fascist rapper Killa P found fame with songs like this, but he paid for his lyrics with his life. On Wednesday, he was stabbed to death. Police arrested a man who reportedly confessed to the murder and a political affiliation. That affiliation is reportedly to the far-right Golden Dawn Party, which denied any connection to the killing. Hashtag Killa P trended across Greece as many expressed outrage. Some said, remember who you voted for. Sarah tweets, this is democracy. A neo-Nazi party wins 18 seats in parliament. Its supporters, she says, stab people in the streets. But others pushed back. Where is all this righteous indignation when immigrants kill Greeks or anti-fascists kill nationalists? Greece is now seeing a face-off as opponents and supporters of Golden Dawn launch competing demonstrations. And we'll continue to follow that story, so send us your updates with hashtag AJStream. Femi?
Malika, when I asked you about which is the hottest story online, you said the Greece story.
No doubt about it.
What are you seeing?
It's going on as we speak, and we're seeing tons of pictures flooding in right now. Protesters out in the streets as we speak. It could be a good show.
Wow, looking forward to that. Casey, you used to live in Nairobi in Kenya. How many phones did you have?
How many phones?
Yeah.
Just the one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Really? You weren't kind of totally hooked up then on the whole digital territory. Okay, all right. So we're going to be talking more about you being a water explorer, which I think is probably the coolest thing that I've actually thought about, to actually do that. What motivates you to do that?
Okay. Well, what motivates me really is the access and the use of new technologies out there. Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll be hearing more from Casey in just a while. Also, our online community with Malika and your tweets as well, so you can tweet us at AJStream. And I just have time to tell you about Thursday's show. Now, if you're a Quebecer, soon you may have to think twice about wearing conspicuous religious symbols. We'll discuss this controversial proposal on what it means for Canada's multicultural identity. The post show is next, so we will see you online at stream.aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Streams online post show. We're still discussing the massive water discovery in Turkana, Kenya. With us we have Casey Water. He's a water exploration expert. John Nyaro is Kenya's Director of Water Resources. Ika Anjali is founder of Friends of Lake Turkana. And Ruth Nyambura is a social ecologist. I am going to start with one of the many fascinating cartoons about this subject. Have a look at this cartoon. So at the top bit you see jumping for joy. We've discovered water in Turkana. Locals not happy. Jumping for joy. We've discovered oil in Turkana. Locals not happy. So let's look at the subtext there, John. Should the locals really have something to celebrate with water being in their area? I mean, how long is it going to be before they're going to see a complete change in their lifestyle?
I think the discovery of water is very important to the local people of Turkana. Water is not like oil. Water is a basic commodity that's needed by everybody. Water is life. So what we are doing, we want to make sure that the people of Turkana enjoy these newfound water resources as soon as possible. And I've said earlier, we have set a date. In 2 months, we must make sure the first borehole is equipped and they are enjoying that water. And this water that we have discovered is for the people of Turkana. Water is unlike electricity, where you can put it on the national grid, and water from Turkana, like electricity on the national grid, is produced at one corner and can be enjoyed recorded. Due to distance, due to the topography, it is not easy to get that water out of Turkana at a cheap cost. So the best thing is that we are making sure that we are going to equip those boreholes and the people of Turkana, but there is still a lot of study that need to be done. Okay. We want to know the actual behaviors of this aquifer so that they're sustainable. The notion that it is only going to be used for 70 years is not there. These aquifers are not fossil aquifers. They are aquifers that are being recharged. The recharge rate, as per our knowledge today, is over 3 billion cubic meters per year. The total water that is being consumed by the county today is only 3 billion. So within the 3 billion of the recharge, if we can only be able to use up to 70% of the recharge, that is going to be sustainable for prosperity beyond 100 years, beyond 1,000 years. And when you talk about of the recharge area, we have got 3 maps that has been produced. One is the recharge map. You will see over 95% of those recharge areas are in Kenya. The aquifer themselves that we have discovered are totally within the Kenyan territory. There is only a little bit, 5%, that we want to really ascertain. Where are they? Are they from Uganda? And actually what we are seeing, if you look at the arrows of those map of the recharge, you will get it is our water that actually...
Okay, John, I need to slow you down a little bit because not everybody is up to date with the geology of Turkana. So a couple of things. So the underwater aquifers, water, rock that bears water, and also do you want to explain a few more things, Casey, for us that John was rolling through, because I really want our global audience to understand as well.
Right. Groundwater generally, well, it comes from the surface. It's rain, and these aquifers generally have to have some recharge or replenishment, and there's a rate. That rate of replenishment is really what we look at in terms of its to sort of gauge its sustainability. And because you can dip into the stored water that's already underground, but that is more like a savings account. If you start to take from that savings account, it will deplete itself.
All right. So John was actually, this is a very optimistic sort of look ahead. Malika, what do you have for our community?
Well, we actually got a video comment in from Oxfam in Nairobi, the international NGO. I'd like all of our guests here today to have a listen to this.
I also see it as being critical, ensuring that the voices of the people of Turkana are heard and that they're a part of the decision-making process and how these water sources are developed. And we need to ensure that they get their equitable share of these water sources. It'll also be really critical for the authorities in Kenya to ensure that there's no negative impacts from these developments and that it doesn't lead to things like land speculation or to people being displaced from their land or having their livelihoods disrupted. But we do feel that if the water extraction and the water development's managed in a sustainable way, in an effective way, that it can potentially have a huge impact on the lives of vulnerable people and help them become much more resilient to the chronic drought they're faced with.
So Ruth, we touched on this a bit earlier, and he reiterates that Kenyans need their equitable share of water, is what he writes. How does that happen, and what does it look like?
Well,
The person whom you're trying to reach is currently unavailable.
Go ahead, Ruth. We lost John momentarily. We'll try and get him back again. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, as I'll say again, confidently, to be very, very honest, majority of people in urban areas in Kenya don't get water in their taps. That's a reality. And the worst thing is that even when it rains, even during the rainy seasons, people don't get a single drop in their taps. Most of us are forced to go and buy water from cartels, which John unfortunately doesn't want to talk about. But that's the reality. Who owns the water? It's interesting that he talks about how the government is going to put in place frameworks. ICAO works with Friends of Lake Turkana. The government itself, Lake Turkana, is going to be affected by Gibe 3. The government of Kenya hasn't done enough to ensure that the people of Turkana, even before the oil, even before this aquifer was discovered, to ensure that their traditional water source is protected. Civil society, in the name of ICAO, Friends of Lake Turkana, have to fight for that. Kenya, in 2010, the UN General Assembly.
I don't know if you would allow
let me finish. Let me finish. No, let me finish. In the General Assembly in 2010, when people were voting, when member states were voting for the right to water, the Kenyan government didn't vote for it. Let's be realistic. Who owns the water? These issues must be addressed. Of course, we want the water to benefit the people, but we must be realistic and truthful in our analysis of the situation. That's what I believe.
John, go ahead.
I think, Angela, you know very clearly our Constitution 2010, under the Bill of Rights, state accept the right of water. So how did Kenya refuse not to vote while their own constitutions has got that provision of the right to water?
That's on record. That's on record.
When I want to talk about, just also give me some time.
So Ruth, allow John to answer.
When you want to talk about the Give 3, you know very well under the international law, there is no country that can stop another country from development. What the international law requires are two things. One, the states that share the common resource must cooperate. Then another state developing a shared resource must make sure that they don't cause any significant harm to them. And how can we be able to ensure this? The Kenyan government has taken initiative, even come up with a draft cooperative framework for Omo River, Lake Turkana, and River Dawas for us to start negotiating so that we can have a joint monitoring mechanism between Kenya and Ethiopia. So we make sure that the Gibe dam will not actually affect Lake Turkana, and that process is on, and that is what we're doing. The same thing we are also doing with the Nile Basin.
Okay, John, hold one moment. Ikao, go ahead.
I mean, it is unfortunate that we wait for 5 years to have a stand. It took 5 years for the government of Kenya to actually admit that Lake Turkana was being affected. So that's unfortunate. So it sort of makes us wonder, will we wait for another tragedy to happen and then we talk? Mr. Nyaora, in 2008, I went into the Ministry of Water, and unfortunately, the Ministry of Water officials did not know if Lake Turkana was totally in Kenya and River Omo was shared. However, having said that, it's good that you're taking steps. Going back to the status how Casey was speaking, I think what we as the local communities want to know is how much of it is fossil, because we know that this aquifer has been studied since 1967. So we need to know how much of it is fossil, how much of it is rechargeable. Let not the discussion be about policymakers. We as the local community need to understand what is this thing, how much of it can we use, because it is in our region, and we have a right to be on the table, as not just as recipients, but as part of the discussion. That's what we want. Not the governor only, but also local communities to be educated on this, just as the Oxfam person has just mentioned.
Actually, today when we were in Turkana this morning, we had a good delegation of the government from all the sectors, from water, from livestock, from the economic, from the revenue allocations. We went to talk with the people of Turkana, and they were represented from all sorts, from the NGOs.
Okay, John, I'm going to push you to be a little faster because I'm running out of time here. What did the people of Turkana say to you?
The people of Turkana told us two things. They want this water that we have discovered is a reality, and then they want the security. The Kenyan government can give them that water and can give them the security. The rest they can do to themselves. And that is the promise that we are going to undertake. We are going to make sure the water that we have discovered are equipped and the people of Turkana are enjoying.
Okay, John, I take your point. I hear you very clearly. I think there's a greater issue here, which is really a distrust of local communities for their government, and that's a much bigger conversation for another day. Let me bring it right back to water again, and what Ikal was asking about how sustainable is the water that you discovered?
Well, more needs to be studied about this, but
Right.
What we estimate is about 3.4 billion cubic meters recharged every year, and so
Right.
that's a sizable, volume of
I'm
water.
trying to imagine
coming in.
how is it an ocean? What is it? What kind of water mass would it be?
Keep in mind that figure applies not only to the large Lotikipi aquifer that everyone focuses on, but it's also all the shallow water as well that is on the map that we saw earlier.
Right.
When it I think that this is something that we really need to look at, but
Right.
it's something attainable, and it is something. It's an estimate at this point.
Right.
And for each individual aquifer, there were 5 of them, 5 major deep ones.
Sure.
Each of those needs to be studied individually. And then for the shallow, we recommend that the shallow aquifers, the groundwater is easily accessible today. And so that's where
Are
people
people
can
using
tap
that
into.
water today?
They're
Like
using it today. They were using it before we came along.
That's fantastic.
But I'm happy to say that the map that we have delivered has enabled people to drill with a very high success rate.
All right, I've never seen a sexier satellite map than that map you showed us earlier, because that's just got water in it, and that's super cool. I'm scared to ask our guests for a single line, because you know that never works out well. Guests, are you up for this, for a single closing line? A single closing line, that's one sentence. Ikal, try this out with you. Are you optimistic about the water reserves in Turkana?
I'm optimistic, despite the fact that they've said it's local use, agriculture, irrigation, and industry. So it would be, as long as they make it clarify what industrial use is,
Okay.
then we can discuss it.
Ruth, optimistic or not about the water resources?
Both.
Okay. Go ahead, explain
Yes.
why in your rest of your sentence.
Yes. Let me just, okay, this is what I'll say basically. As it people to rubber stamp they must take center stage. Their land, this is their water.
All right, we've got the gist of that. And then, John, a sentence for you as well. Optimistic or not? I have a feeling yes.
I want to say it is Eureka. We have found it for the people of Turkana. And I want to assure them they are going to enjoy the water from the aquifers that we have discovered. In the next 2 months, there will be no shortage of water in Lodwar. Thank you very much.
Wow. Let's just end on that satellite picture, because that is a sexy satellite picture. They're going to find it for us in the control room. Our online community, are they optimistic or not?
Well, here's a phrase that you probably don't hear very often.
Yeah.
Lively conversation on water. Al-Hajj tweets that
I don't think I've ever heard that.
I don't think I have a first time for everything, but he continues, let us pray it doesn't turn out to be a resource curse.
All right, so guests, pat yourself on the back for making water resources and water discovery compelling television. Let's see if we can continue our flow. I know, I'm sorry. Water
puns
pun.
keep coming.
Push them away. On Thursday's show, if you're a Quebecer, soon you may have to think twice about wearing conspicuous religious symbols. We'll discuss this controversial proposal and what it means for Canada's multicultural identity. And we'll be having that discussion on the next AJ stream. Until then, we'll be online at stream.aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching. Take care.